So have you ever wondered what it's like to vacation in the U.S. Virgin Islands? Well, I'm going to tell you because I just got back from 9 days in St. John. My husband and I went down for his 57th birthday and we had a ball. Now, you know, in my videos, I tell you the good and the bad. I'm very honest. We had never been to St. John before, never had been to the U.S. Virgin Islands before. We learned a lot. We got an awakening. It took a little time for us to figure out the vibe and the environment there. I'm going to tell you what we loved, what we did, where we ate, what we thought about the island, would we ever go back for a vacation in St. John, and then something poopy that happened as soon as we got home. So you all know that we normally vacation in Puerto Vallarta, which is on the Pacific coast of Mexico, and the water there is just simply not clear. So for years, my husband has been saying he wants to vacation where there is crystal clear, gorgeous aqua blue water. He wants to go snorkeling. He wants to swim in the ocean. He wants to be able to see his feet. And that's one of the reasons we don't really get in the water in Puerto Vallarta, because it's just not clear. So for a long time now, we've been looking into different places in the Caribbean because that's where the blue water is. And we settled on the U.S. Virgin Islands, specifically St. John. We watched a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of people on Instagram talking about vacationing in St. John, and it looked perfect. So months ago, we booked this trip and went down for 9 days for my husband's 57th birthday. So you cannot fly into St. John. It's a really small island. It's only 36 miles long by 6 miles wide, and 75% of the island is a natural reserve. You can't touch it. There can be nothing built on it. So only 25% of the island even has hotels or Airbnbs, restaurants, grocery stores, like all of those things. So it is a really small place. So you fly into St. Thomas and you take a ferry over to St. John. We landed on day one and I got on that ferry, and y'all, I get motion sickness, I get seasickness, and instantly I was like, oh no. This is not going to be good. And to get around in St. John, you can do two things. You can rent a car, which, oh my goodness, we looked into this. And because the terrain in St. John is very hilly, just like curves and hills, you can't rent a regular car. In fact, I don't even think there are regular cars available to rent on St. John. You have to get a Jeep or a four-wheel drive. So we looked into this. We were going to do this, but in St. John, they drive on the opposite side of the road. The steering wheel is still on the same side of the car, but you are driving on the left. So we decided to rent a car. We called down there to get one. Every car place completely booked. And we said, you know what, it's fine. We'll just take a taxi, which we heard they were readily available. There's no Uber, there's no Lyft. We weren't going to go far, just to the beaches. We'll just take a taxi. So we finally make it to St. John. It was a really long day of travel. I mean, long. We got to where we were staying about 5:30, 6 o'clock that night, and we had made reservations at the Wharfside Village Inn. And let me just tell you, it was incredibly beautiful. We had a King Deluxe oceanfront room. You were looking right over Cruise Bay at all of the sailboats and the ferry boats and a lot of people, I might add. It's not a quiet private bay by any means, but the room was absolutely stunning. Outside on the patio, we had these big Adirondack chairs, and I sat out there every morning and had my coffee. It was a great room. So if you're going to St. John, highly recommend the Wharfside Village Inn. So in St. John, there are not big resorts. There are really not even hotels. There are some condos that you can rent in some really high dollar areas. There is an inn that we stayed at. There were only 35 rooms, or you can rent an individual huge home or house, and that is really for a big group of people. But because it was so late when we got there, we just didn't have time to figure out where we were going to eat. We went downstairs and ate at a restaurant called Karma. I got sushi. We each got a fancy cocktail. I had like a coconut mojito. Randy got a painkiller. And apparently painkillers are like the known cocktail of St. John. It's a mix of, I don't know, orange juice and vodka. Every restaurant has their own version of a painkiller. And so my husband was like, fine, I'll get a painkiller. So we had a cocktail. I had sushi. Randy got a freshly caught yellow-tailed snapper. And for dessert, we had a blueberry and banana bread pudding. And when the check came, We knew things were going to be expensive in St. John because you're in a very remote Caribbean island. But when this check came, we were floored. It was $320. Did not expect that. So that just kind of told us right there, uh-oh, we may be in over our head because we did not know that the restaurant prices were going to be that excessive. So the next morning we get up, we're all excited, we're going to go to a beach. And there's all these little beaches all over the island of St. John. You have to take a taxi to the beach. So we go outside thinking we're going to hail a taxi, like a little car. Oh no, not in St. John. There is no such thing. So the locals there in St. John, from what I could tell, control the entire transportation system. They control the taxis. And these taxis are, I don't know how to describe it, kind of like a trolley. Sort of. So you have kind of like a diesel truck, a driver of a truck, but then it is pulling this like trolley system. And some of them were big, some of them were small, hold anywhere from like 8 to 16 people. And again, so expensive. One way to a beach for one person ranged $8 to $12 to $16, depending on how far away you were going. Same thing coming back. So we, on day one, went to Trunk Bay, which was just voted one of the best beaches in the world. We head off to Trunk Bay. We get off of the taxi and you've got the entrance, like the little walkway down with all of the leaves and the little steps, and you can get a glimpse of the sand and the beautiful blue waters. And I was so excited. I had my camera going and we kind of come through that entrance and look at the water. And this is what everybody shows you on social media. And I even said to my husband, oh my gosh, look at this. And then when you start to look around, you realize there are so many people on that beach. So incredibly crowded. And because it is a natural park or a natural preserve, there is an entry fee to get into the beach. It was $5 each, which is totally fine. I get it. They're trying to preserve their beach. But oh my goodness. So our little day trip to Trunk Bay was $50 round trip for the taxi and the entry fee to the beach. We could hardly find a place to sit. There were people everywhere, which is really not my vibe at the beach. I like it to be just a little bit more laid back. One thing we did do that was super smart before we went, we rented beach chairs. So we could take the chairs, they had like a little backpack system on them. There was a cooler on the back so we could get ice and drinks and take a sandwich or whatever we needed. And we took our chairs to the beach every day. As soon as you get off of the ferry in St. John, there is a little shop called the Beach Bum. We just went on their website before we went, rented our beach chairs. So day one, we picked them up and we had them the whole trip. Some of the beaches had like you could rent a beach chair for the day, but you were renting it once you got there. So you had no way to bring food or ice or any of the stuff. So we were really glad that we rented the beach chairs in advance so we could take everything we needed every day to the beach. And those beach chairs turned out to be really handy later in the week, which we'll get to in a minute. One side note about the entire island of St. John, beach umbrellas are not allowed. They apparently can be dangerous. They can be harmful to sea life. I don't know, but there's no such thing as a beach umbrella. And all the beaches in St. John are like this pure white sand. It is gorgeous sand, but there are no shells. Literally, I don't think I saw an entire seashell the whole time I was there. It is just pure sand, but the water is a crystalline aqua blue, aquamarine. It is so pretty. We could get in all the way to our neck and still look down and see our feet. So the rest of the evenings we went out for dinner at St. John because we were not in an all-inclusive resort. Like I said, those don't exist at St. John. So we had to go out. Got to be honest here. I did not love the food at St. John. It just, I didn't think it was very good. They didn't have vegetables. They didn't have fruit. We talked to some people that live there. It's very hard for St. John to get fresh produce and fresh vegetables. So restaurants for dinner, you might get like a fancy fish or whatever. They're serving you rice. There were some places that had mashed potatoes. You were getting plantains or black beans. After a couple days in, I thought my body was like, it was telling me it needed some vegetables, but there were none to be had. I didn't get a vegetable until the last 2 nights we were there. We had pizza one night, we had tacos one night, we had burgers one night, that's just what it was. It was nothing fancy. And even though some of the restaurants claimed to be fancy and looked nice from the outside, when you got inside, they weren't. We were very disappointed in the food and the entire restaurant setting while we were at St. John. We did discover a little place that we had breakfast a couple mornings. It was called The Landing. It's a little outside cafe. Randy got this crazy, like funky monkey smoothie, banana milkshakey type thing. We had bacon and eggs. I got toast one morning. They had a really good chocolate chip pancake, and there are roosters and chickens running around all over like the town square in St. John. They were so much fun to watch. Some of those roosters and chickens too were just absolutely beautiful, and they're just running around loose. That's just what they do in St. John. So on my husband's birthday, we decided to get dressed up. We had plans. We were going to go to a restaurant that he had already picked out that had a really good looking menu. Lobster. I was dying to have some freshly caught Caribbean lobster. So I got all dressed up in my favorite strapless romper, put on heels. My husband had on a summer sweater. We head off to the restaurant, halted at the door because I inquired about the lobster, and they said, "Oh yeah, we changed our menu. We don't serve that anymore." We're like, "What do you mean you changed your menu? This is the menu that's on your website and your Facebook page." And they just said, "Yeah, we don't know why that hasn't been updated. We haven't had lobster in a long time." So then we go up the street to another restaurant that we were wanting to eat at, inquired about something else that is supposed to be on their menu. Exact same story. "Yeah, we're not serving that anymore." It's like the restaurants were so unconcerned about customer service or quality or customer happiness. I don't know. After that night, after I got dressed up and we ended up eating some pretty crappy tacos, to be honest, I decided that's it. Nobody else is dressed up. Nobody else here cares. I'm not doing it either. So for the rest of the week, for dinner, I actually wore like a tank top, shorts, no makeup. That's it. That's what everybody else was doing, so I decided I was going to do it too. So if you want to know what all I took to St. John, my bathing suits, cover-ups, clothes I wore, makeup I took, how I packed everything, I'll put links to all of my traveling favorites, including my favorite bathing suit, in the description box below. So by that point, we had decided that we didn't love the beaches. We'd been to Maho Beach and Trunk Bay and just so incredibly crowded, and we knew there were other beaches on St. John that you could only get to by boat. So we decided to rent a dinghy, just the two of us. You got the dinghy from 10 to 5 and you could go anywhere that you wanted to. So we got the dinghy, loaded up our beach chairs, packed the coolers in the back with sandwich and chips and drinks, and we took our sunscreen and all the stuff, and we went and did whatever the heck we wanted to do. And this turned out to be our very favorite thing of the entire trip. We loved it so much, we actually did it 2 days. So we went to Scott's Beach, which is known for the sea turtles. So the first day, we spent almost the entire day on Scott Beach. And it was just us. There was not another person there. Now, at one point, another dinghy pulled up. It was really late in the day. Man and wife, they stayed for about 30 minutes and left. And my husband took his snorkel mask. And because the water was so clear, you could just walk right out with your snorkel mask on, put your face in the water, and you were seeing fish, sea turtles, stingrays. We saw 2 dolphins coming into Scott Beach, and we even saw a couple deer up on the beach. Like, it was amazing. So if you go to St. John, you can absolutely rent a snorkel mask. You're going to get the typical mask and snorkel. The beach bum, where we rented our beach chairs, we learned at the end of the trip that they did have the full face snorkel mask, but we have had ours for a long time. We take them wherever we go, and these are so fantastic. They just suck to your face. Not a single bit of water is coming in these. This is your breathing tube. So when you have the mask on, you can breathe out your nose or out your mouth, just like you would normally breathe. And these are so much more comfortable than just the mask. And we snorkeled every single day. The fish, everything we saw, it was simply amazing. So I was out in the water snorkeling, and it was my first time to do it on the trip. And so my husband was filming me with the camera. He saw me coming back to the beach, and this is what I had to say.
Did you see some?
Did you see me have a freak out moment?
No.
Can you see me kicking?
Yeah.
So I was looking at the turtle. They're coming right, gigantic stingray, like bigger than me. So that's why I like freaked out and started turning my body around. And then when I got out of its way, I turned around to look at the turtle, and there was a mama turtle. So we were looking at the turtle this big. There's a turtle this big, like over here in the grass. I didn't know you were filming me. Oh, it scared me.
The second time that we rented the dinghy, we spent about half of the day at Oppenheimer Beach. There were a couple people there, like maybe 5 other people. It's, again, just another very secluded beach. Only accesses water, so we thought. Not as much sea life there. We're told there are sea turtles there, but in the mornings they kind of swim away. But Scotts Beach, the sea turtles are visible all day long. We just saw so many sea turtles. So for my husband's birthday, I thought it would be really fun to make an Instagram reel, just a summary of all the fun things we did during the week. And it's going live on Instagram and Facebook later today, but I'll go on and show you all now. I just think it turned out really cute. We also sent this reel to some of our friends and Randy's parents just because they wanted to see what we were up to, and this summed it up. So during the evenings when we were trying to decide what we were going to eat, like I said, we didn't love our dinners for the majority of the week, but we discovered a little ice cream shop run by a lady named Karen. Karen was the cutest and the sweetest thing. We walked in her little pink ice cream shop, and there was just stuff everywhere. Menus and smoothies and ice creams and milkshakes and Scoops ice cream, and it was something. But we loved this little ice cream shop. So she had a sign up that my husband laughed his head off. It says, "If you can hear the blender, I can't hear you." And that was so true. Karen was back there like nonstop just making milkshakes. So everybody's in line just waiting for her to turn the blender off so that you can place an order, because there was no way she was hearing you with that blender on. We found a little sub shop called Polly's. He's kind of up the street just a little bit, kind of overlooking Karen's ice cream shop, sort of ish. He had the best Italian subs I have ever had. That's what we would get and pack and put in our cooler to take out when we rented the dinghies. The last night we were there, we did go to dinner at Ocean 362, and this was, I think, my favorite meal of the entire trip. I finally got my Caribbean lobster. It came with garlic mashed potatoes, broccoli, and then we had a kind of chocolate ganache thing for dessert. I still am not quite sure what it was, but it was so good. A couple things we learned about going to St. John. There is no need to overpack. Seriously, nobody is getting dressed up. People coming off the beaches or off their boats, they come into town, and that's what they look like. That's how they're eating dinner. That's what they look like all day long. I took so much stuff. Oh my goodness, because we weren't in a condo. We weren't going to have a washer and dryer. I thought I was going to need all these clothes. No way. I came home with probably 75% of it completely untouched. So do not overpack. Basically, every day I wore a tank top, shorts, little strappy sandals, crossbody purse, and then all day long during the day I was in a bathing suit. So a couple items that saved me while I was on vacation in St. John, and honestly saved me anytime I go on a beach vacation. I always take these sterile transparent dressings to cover my estrogen patch because I was in the water for hours and hours and hours every single day. If you don't believe me, I'm telling you, you should absolutely hear what I'm saying. Your estrogen patch, the kind that just sticks on you, you are not getting the proper estrogen if you do not cover it. So these little patches come in this huge box. They're like 2 by 2. I cut them in half so I get 2 uses out of 1 patch, and I make sure to keep my estrogen patch 100% dry and covered anytime I'm in the water, at the beach, and on vacation. And I knew we were going to have to take a ferry, so I took my nausea bands with me, my motion bands. If you have never seen these, they're just little. You can get them fancy. I just have the cheap kind. They're just a little band that you put on your arm, but there is a hard ball in one section. And if you think you're going to get motion sick, you put these on and you position the ball 3 fingers down right between, there's like 2 tendons that run right here. You can feel it, and you just put the ball in the middle of those, and you have to wear them on both wrists. And I basically wore these our entire trip because we were in the water, we were on a boat, we were on a plane, we were on a ferry, like so many things I thought were going to make me sick. Not one single time. These things are simply incredible. If you've never seen these, they're on Amazon. They're like $6 or $7. I'll link them in the description box. I had to put these on every single time we got in the taxi. And because we were in the sunshine for hours and hours every single day, when I come in and take my shower, I swear by this Hawaiian Tropic weightless hydration after sun care. It has a coconut and papaya fragrance, and it is so lovely. I always am fully covered in sunscreen anytime I'm outside, but you know, you can get that, oh my gosh, I had a lot of sun. So I put this on after my shower, and it just soothes my skin and turns any, if I did get any sunburn, into just a normal tan. And while we were there, I read a book that my daughter recommended. I took my Kindle, had the book downloaded, ready to go, and I started reading it on the plane there. I was reading The Great Alone. So the entire week, every day on the beach, I'm reading this story. And it is just so depressing and so tragic and so sad. I got about 75% of the book, and I finally called my daughter one day and said, "Why did you tell me to read this on the beach? This is a tragic story." And she said, "Mom, I didn't tell you to read it on the beach. I told you to just read it. It is definitely not a beach read." So I put the book down because it was just so depressing. I didn't want to finish it. Started another book, just couldn't get into it, but my brain kept saying, what is going on in The Great Alone? I've got to finish this book. So I did finish it on our last day on the beach. Oh my goodness. Do not. It is not a beach read. Trust me on this. It's a really good story, just certainly not a beach read. But we're home. I've been home 2 days now, sitting down to make this video for you all. And I told you in the intro of the video that something horrible happened when we got home, and it's me. I have a middle ear infection. This is like the 3rd or 4th time this has happened to me. Anytime we go somewhere and I get in the water, and it's really just ocean water, and I get on a plane and fly home, I always get a middle ear infection. So my head is like, ooh, I'm swimming. I'm so just disoriented and dizzy, and I have a headache. So I gave it 2 days thinking it would clear up itself. It didn't. Called my doctor this morning. I started an antibiotic earlier today. Fingers crossed in the next couple of days, this will all be gone. But because I've had this before, as soon as it set in, I knew what it was. No fun. So that was our trip in St. John. 9 days there for my husband's birthday in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Would I go back? I don't know. We had a great time. The beaches were beautiful. The water was unbelievable, like nothing I have ever seen before in my life. So if I could just take the beach and the sand and the water and the scenery and the island, I would absolutely go back. The vibe of the island, the taxi system, I did not like that one bit. It was very dangerous. Like, we would be on a taxi and these drivers are just driving so fast. The leaves and trees on the side of the roads are just brushing into the taxi. There are little teeny streets and you were just side swiping cars. We saw wrecks. We saw cars broken down. We saw people, backing into things. It was crazy. Didn't love the food. And then on top of that, everything was just excessively expensive. If I go back, it's probably going to be way in the future. I need time to forget all the bad things and only remember the good things, and maybe we'll do it again. But that was our weekend, St. John. See ya.